Tom O'Connor, who joins us from New York. He's a senior foreign policy writer at Newsweek. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the program today. Now, how significant is it that Joe Biden used the word genocide to describe the events taking place in Ukraine?
Well, it's a significant rhetorical escalation, but it's important to note that this is not a legal determination, but a political one. And that's something that President Biden even himself said would have to be qualified by international lawyers. The problem here is that there's not really a realistic, unanimous mechanism for determining this sort of thing, given the fact that Russia is a permanent member of the UN Security Council. The United Nations, any extension of its authority really is determined from that council, and Russia has a veto power there. So it's difficult to say if there will be a mechanism forward legally to be able to brand Russia or President Putin as being responsible for genocide. Any other mechanisms that come will certainly end up politicized, much like this conflict has been.
Over the past 7 weeks or so, the Biden administration has been under immense pressure to give as much aid as possible to Ukraine, whether it be militarily, financially, humanitarian aid. And we are hearing from them that they are going to send an additional $750 million in military aid to Ukraine. What more can we expect from the Biden administration to do?
Well, President Biden and his administration want to ensure that they're giving that message that they are continuing to support Ukraine, its fight, and it could be a protracted fight. And President Biden has also said that before. Now we're seeing another phase in this conflict where Russia is focusing on the east, something that many observers say Russia might have an advantage in fighting, and given the fact that it's been under separatist control for so long, and it's closer to Russia itself. So that helps supply lines. It helps a sort of conventional warfare strategy. And what Ukraine needs right now for what it's asking for is just further support and stronger support from the U.S. But I think that there's also a desire within the White House and the administration to also up the rhetorical support for Ukraine. I think that might be where this genocide conversation is coming from.
Right, and we did hear from Biden himself say that American troops won't be playing an active role on the ground in Ukraine in fighting Russian troops to help the Ukrainian army. But they did say that they will take concrete action if Russia does cross a red line. What is that red line, and what action would the U.S. take in retaliation to that red line?
Sure. Well, you're absolutely right. President Biden has been very clear in saying that he's not going to send U.S. troops to this conflict, nor does that seem to be a very popular decision if he did do that domestically. I spoke with the Russian ambassador not long ago, and he warned that even just an escalation of U.S. military assistance or convoys into Ukraine could end up in a confrontation between the U.S. and Russia, something that President Biden has said could lead to World War III itself. So the U.S. options right now, I think, are quite limited. Besides just continuing to support Ukraine, continuing to provide this sort of assistance. Besides that, Russia right now, of course, does have an advantage in the fact that it's a major power. And going back to the conversation about international mechanisms, of course, the U.S. too has sought to block investigations into its own actions, alleged war crimes considered by the ICC, a probe back a few years. And of course, President Biden then removed sanctions from the ICC, but he's also called any sort of opposition, called for any end to investigation to Israel when it comes to that as well. So you're seeing right now the limits of international law and legitimacy when it comes to major powers. And I think it's really going to test these international mechanisms and how they're influenced for future conflicts and future issues.
Tom O'Connor, it was a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for that input.